You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Kamron Wilson was on campus. A four-star edge rusher from Miami, committed to Syracuse football, but there has been a lot of buzz recently, and not good buzz for Syracuse football, about Nebraska being a team to potentially flip a four-star edge rusher committed to Syracuse and Kamron Wilson. First off, he officially visited Nebraska on June 6th. Then he's visited other places, and I think he does have another official visit lined up with another school, but it seems to be Nebraska. On 3, Steve Wiltfong logged a flip prediction, so that's not good for Syracuse. Rivals listed Kamron Wilson as a possible flip candidate, to which Kamron Wilson actually quote tweeted an eyes emoji as like, ooh, I might actually flip my commitment, right? And then furthermore, John Garcia from Rivals wrote that, hey, it seems to be Syracuse and Nebraska right before the official visit to Syracuse. As of right now, I can't tell you the good news or the bad news as far as, hey, is Kamron Wilson going to stay or is Kamron Wilson going to ultimately flip? But what I can tell you is, hey, I think the timing of this official visit was perfect. Because you think about it, he goes to Nebraska. Nebraska obviously is pushing hard to try to get him. But then a week later, he hasn't yet decommitted and gone to Nebraska. He takes his official visit to Syracuse, which I think is a good step for the Orange as far as trying to keep Kamron Wilson. But of the 4 players that we're going to talk about here in this segment, he's probably the most likely of the 4 to flip. Again, it seems to be between Syracuse and Nebraska, and it's definitely one to monitor over the summer and, well, into the season, to be quite frank with you. Next up, you got Javeion Cooper, a 4-star tackle from Melbourne, Florida. There's been some chatter online about Javeion Cooper potentially flipping from Syracuse. I mean, he officially visited Florida State on June 6th, and he's also got an official visit lined up with UCF on June 20th per 24/7 Sports. But then he shared with 24/7 Sports Syracuse analyst Mike McAllister that he's not flipping. His words. He's not flipping. Syracuse fans have nothing to worry about, according to Javeion Cooper. Now, I imagine just because Javeion Cooper is saying that these other schools are just going to stop recruiting, right? Kind of like with Syracuse, how Messiah Hampton the other day, he picked Oregon ahead of Syracuse. Even though I think it's going to be very challenging to flip Messiah Hampton, I don't think that Syracuse is going to close the door. I don't think they're just going to stop the relationship with him and say, you know what, you committed to Oregon, we're done with you, right? So, having said that, I still think this is a very positive update with Javeion Cooper, the fact that he's saying, hey, you got nothing to worry about. Yeah, I'm taking other visits. I do want to keep my options open, but Syracuse is still firmly in command to keep 4-star tackle Javeion Cooper. Jarius Rogers, a 4-star edge rusher from Orange Park, Florida. He was on campus last weekend for an official visit. There really has not been a lot of buzz out there from any national recruiting expert about Rogers potentially flipping from Syracuse. There's only one verified official visit that he has taken so far this summer, or that he is scheduled to take in general, and that was UCF back on June 6th. Could that change? Of course it could change, and visits can occur over the course of the season next year. However, Jarius Rogers has been committed to Syracuse since late January, and since that time, there really hasn't been a lot of chatter about him flipping potentially from Syracuse, so it seems like a good sign for now with the 4-star edge rusher. And finally, you got Jackson Gates, who was also on campus last weekend, a 3-star cornerback from California. I am keeping my eye on this one because it's far from home. It's going from California to Syracuse. And look, Florida to Syracuse is not that big of a deal. It's not that bad of a flight. You might need to take a connection, to be honest with you. But there's also no time difference. It's pretty easy to get up and down there. No time difference, all that. California to Syracuse is a pretty big deal for anyone, especially someone that's 18 years old going into college, going from West Coast to East Coast or East Coast to West Coast. Long flight, so it's tougher for family to come visit or for you to get back to your family, and also you got a 3-hour time difference. Now, Gates has officially visited plenty of places around the country. Obviously, Syracuse last weekend, but think about it. Utah on May 30th, Michigan State on June 2nd, BYU on June 6th. The good news is that, according to 24/7 Sports, Syracuse was the last scheduled official visit for Jackson Gates. And the fact that he did not decommit and go somewhere else prior to his official visit with Syracuse, I think is a positive sign that the Orange can maintain this commitment of Jackson Gates. So overall, the 4 players that I would say are on quote unquote flip watch, right? Kamron Wilson, that one's really up in the air. You got Javeion Cooper. I think that's pretty solid. Jarius Rogers, pretty solid. And Jackson Gates, maybe a little bit up in the air, but I think a positive step in the right direction for Syracuse. So I feel pretty confident that the Orange are going to maintain most, if not all, of these 4 commitments in the class of 2026. And the reason why I highlighted these 4 is because A, they were on campus last weekend, like I mentioned, and B, there's some of the higher rated players in Syracuse's class. I mean, 3 of them are 4 stars. The one 4-star I did not mention was Amari Goff, the wide receiver from Virginia. That's it. So pretty important that Syracuse can maintain most, if not all, of these players.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.